Welcome to episode number 177 of the Marine Layer podcast. We welcome on Mariners co-minor league pitcher of the year, Michael Morales. We chat with him about winning the award, having a resurgent season down in the minors, and he tells us some stories about some of the trash talk that goes on between him and his teammates. Teoscar Hernandez also had some more comments about his time in Seattle. We'll discuss.
Here's your guys' reminder before we start this show. If you're listening, do us a big favor. Download the episodes. Leave us a 5-star review. It all really does help us out if you rate and review and download. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You see it. Just takes a second to do. Like, leave a comment, and follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts at Marine Layer Pod.
Let's get it rolling.
The pitch from Acevedo. A drive feet to right field. Down the line. The Mariners win this game 2-1. The dream lives. They're going to the playoffs. 1-1 from Jansen. There you go. Left field. We got a tie ball game. Julio. Oh, baby, what a moment. Tie ball game at 7-7.
And we welcome you to this episode of the Marine Layer podcast, part of the Just Baseball Podcast Network. Recording here on Monday evening, October 28th. We've got some World Series to talk about. Teoscar Hernandez made some headlines in the Mariners community again. But first, before we get into any baseball, I need to make an ask to all of our listeners, to all of our watchers on YouTube who will probably notice this as these words are coming out of my mouth. If you are listening to this episode on any of our podcast platforms, I recommend you go watch this episode on YouTube. You'll probably see something different. Lyle and I look a little bit crispier, a little bit more in focus. You can see some of our imperfections as well, but that's fine. We've invested in some better equipment, so it makes the YouTube experience a little bit more appealing to you guys. So I recommend to all the listeners, go take a look at our YouTube page. Please, if you're not subscribed, go look at our YouTube page. We look pretty awesome.
Yeah, this is cool. We look different. No, we don't look different. We just look. Well, you say imperfections, but we look better. We're like right in 4D to everybody watching now.
Well, if you have like a zit.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I wasn't really thinking about that.
That would be like a little bit more in focus.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, we've wanted to do this for a while, and now we have. Now we've got this stuff, so everything on YouTube looks a little better, and with this, I think we're going to start to get creative with some of the content we now do on social media because, look, we love all the stuff we do, but there are certain things we kind of circle through often, and the types of content we've done over the first year and a half, 2 years of doing this podcast so far. Now with these cameras, we feel like the door's kind of open to do some really, really fun, creative stuff, like even more so than we've been doing before. Not that what we've been doing hasn't been creative, but I think this offseason we're gonna dip into the pool of new ideas a little bit. So stick around for that because we've got some ideas.
Now let's get to some baseball. Have we already Lyle, we've already talked about Teoscar Hernandez talking about his former team in the Seattle Mariners earlier this year. Didn't think we'd be making a return trip to this, but Teoscar Hernandez was profiled on ESPN prior to the World Series Game 3. Dodgers are up 3-0. We'll touch on that after we talk about these comments. But Teo had some more to say about the Mariners in referencing his 2023 teammates. And yeah, it was sort of describing the whole story about how he ended up as a Dodger, what kind of offers were out there for him, and why he had such a disappointing season. Well, he was talking about the 2023 team and saying, oh yeah, we were so talented, this was great. But there was something missing. Teoscar Hernandez said, this was a team that was playing as a bunch of Let me try that again. Teoscar said, this was a team that was playing as a bunch of individuals, not as a team, not as a collective group. So, Lyle, how do you take those comments?
That he didn't think the clubhouse was exactly a collective unit. Clearly, he thinks what's the right word? The camaraderie between the Dodgers team that he's on right now is a step above where Seattle was. That could be a knock at Scott Servais. That could be a knock at some of the other guys in the clubhouse. It could mean a whole lot of things. But clearly, Teoscar's played a year in LA now. He just came off playing a year in Seattle. It's easy to compare where he's played the last 2 seasons. Maybe he's compared it to Toronto too, if you want to add the last 3 seasons. And clearly he feels like in the last 2, there's more togetherness in his mind with the Dodgers. That's how I take it.
I could take this a couple of different ways. He could be talking about the pure baseball aspect of how they play baseball, which I actually think is a legitimate argument, or he could be talking about the clubhouse. Let's start about the baseball argument. When he says not playing as a group, as a collective unit, I take that down to a couple of things. It could be something, Lyle, as simple as there's a guy on first, you're down a run, and we're not talking about sacrifice bunting here. We're legitimately just talking about, is the guy at the plate trying to line a single the other way? Because isn't that what most people have been complaining about for years now? For especially the last 2 years when the Mariners have struck out a bunch. Well, part of the reason they've struck out a bunch is they've been angling for more power, which, if you're successful, is fine. But in the Mariners' case, it has led to good, but not quite good enough to make the playoffs results. So that actually kind of lines up, right? Mariners do hit a lot of home runs. They do swing. They are focused on like the success of the individual plate appearance, and it could even go so far as to say, if you draw a walk at the plate, is it like this crazy like guy on first, you're down a run, you draw a walk instead of lining a single the other way? Like it's successful technically.
Let me cut you off.
Oh boy.
For Teoscar Hernandez to say that, yes. Did Teoscar Hernandez draw walks or poke singles the other way? No. He didn't do any of that. He would hit some home runs from time to time and strike out 31% of the time.
I have a really hard time pointing the finger at Teoscar Hernandez after more of the outside players struggled this year. I'm sorry. Like you did rip him a little bit in our social post today on Monday when these comments came out. Yeah, he wasn't great, but just remember, Lyle, he would be considered great if he played on this year's team. Right?
I think he'd be considered productive. I wouldn't say great.
No. So how many players on the team this year at a 741 OPS?
But remember how streaky that was? He was hot in June. He was hot, I want to say, in August. The first couple months of the season, it was dreadful.
Is that better than just not being good at all?
I'm just saying, he was not brought here to be a 106 WRC plus hitter. He was brought here to be the second best bat in the lineup. It wasn't close. He was not. Yeah,
but now we're saying like we expect the Seattle Mariners to bring someone in and not disappoint.
Okay, I will say in general about Teoscar's take, if you're talking about from a baseball standpoint, look, baseball is a team sport, but a lot of it's very individual. Hitting is individual. Are you really depending on other people for how your at-bats and the outcomes go? Not really.
Yeah. But when we look at Teoscar, he's not the only one who had the kind of approach he did when he's swinging. Like, the last 2 seasons, the approach has been very Teoscar-like from everybody in terms of swinging pretty hard and striking out a bunch. Mm-hmm. So, like, that doesn't lead to a very team-like approach. But what I really think Lyle Teoscar means, and something, there are a lot of media members thinking this, they just lacked leadership of that group. There was not a Carlos Santana. That's an easy name because he was a 2022 Mariner and everyone talked about how great he was. Mm-hmm. The fact that Teoscar Hernandez, can't get these names right. The fact that Carlos Santana was not a Mariner in 2023, I think had massive repercussions. And this alone, Lyle, these words from Teoscar Hernandez, if this is what he means, is the best sales pitch in the world for bringing Justin Turner back. Not as your starting first baseman, but just getting him on the roster to hit. A lot of guys talked about the kind of leadership that Justin Turner brought, and he'll be 40 next year. He's almost going to be a coach. That really feels like a slam dunk at this point. Because I think the best way to get guys unified as a team is to have consistent leadership. Just kind of hard to say the Mariners have had that.
Yeah. Justin Turner cannot be the starting first baseman, but he should probably be on the roster next year because we have seen the difference between what it looked like in 2022 and the final 5 weeks of 2024 compared to 2023 and the first 5 months of 2024. Sometimes you just need an adult in the room. Not to say that these guys aren't adults. Obviously, they're of age and all that stuff. But a real veteran with postseason experience, with big league success, that have wisdom to share with the rest of the group. Because there's not really a guy like that on this team, and there wasn't in 2024, aside from Justin Turner. So maybe that's what Teoscar means. Although Teoscar wasn't such a rookie himself when he was with the Mariners. He was 30, 31. He wasn't that young. He could have been the veteran.
But some guys just don't have it. So it shouldn't, I don't think it should be on the guys who just aren't natural born leaders to lead.
And you're right, Teoscar probably is not that. I still have a little bit of a hard time with the quotes that came out. And look, he didn't rip them. He just wasn't exactly favoring them. Not that he should. Obviously, we've talked about.
Say, should he?
I mean,
that's
again,
all
we've
it's like
talked
saying,
plenty.
Lyle and TJ, you guys should stop ripping the Mariners.
Look, he was asked a question. He answered it. I just have a little bit of a hard time swallowing that pill. When he just didn't have a good year. And also, people, in case you haven't forgotten, he did not play good defense. So that was another piece of the puzzle here. He didn't play good defense. He had the worst season he'd had in 5 years. He struck out 31% of the time. If he had a better year, I would have been okay with him. Like, I would have been able to digest easier him saying what he said. But when he disappointed as greatly as he did, it's still a tough pill to swallow. Again, the Mariners could have picked up that qualifying option for him this year in 24. If they had thought he was worth it, they would have. And you can argue whether he was or not. And having some hindsight now, there are people out there that'll say, yeah, Teoscar should have been back in 24. Was anybody really clamoring for him to be back after 23 when they declined that option? No, because he just wasn't that good.
He wasn't. But after seeing like everything that's happened the past 2 years, it is really difficult to point the blame finger at Teoscar Hernandez. Like, yeah, did he live up to expectations? No. But is he the biggest issue? Like, he's probably, 25th in line?
Yeah, he's not the biggest issue. He's not close to the biggest issue. Maybe part of this is just me still being salty that they missed the playoffs that year, and then they missed the playoffs again this year, and they continue to have failures with bringing in big league talent that's supposed to be proven talent. But he was the biggest name they've acquired offensively in the last 3-4 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And that is part of it. He didn't live up to that.
It's part of it. Here's the other question I had about this. Like, now we need to get to, like, culturally about the Mariners. They see stuff like this. Does this, like, weigh at all for Jerry Dipoto? Because he's what's left when it comes to, first of all, just being the guy in charge. But second of all, in terms of, like, the leadership totem pole within the organization, some of the players are still on the roster, of course. Cal, Julio. But something like this, Lyle, like the job of this is on the manager, which Scott Service is no longer the manager of the Mariners, and the guy who puts the roster together, who, when you see quotes like this is something you need to seriously look at. Like, you need to consider this. Is this, like, how big of an issue is this, and how do we fix this? Does Jerry Dipoto put much weight in these comments? I hope he does, because I'm going to guess whatever problems were with the 2023 Mariners, they had the same problems in 2024, if not worse. Because if we're talking baseball or non-baseball, Lyle, it's hard to argue that it was much different in terms of the consistency, the style of play, and just the results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This should be taken seriously. How do we fix it? I don't know. I'll say the same thing I said on social media today when we did this reaction. We're not in that clubhouse every day. So we can speculate how they could fix it, but we'd just be guessing. That's on them to figure it out. Why on earth are there, I don't want to say cultural problems, but why on earth is it not the collective group it once was in 2021 and 2022? Because those 2 years, that's all you heard, how close that team was. Well, that doesn't seem to be as much the case the last couple of years. So I think a lot of people, players, coaches, front office, need to look in the mirror and figure this thing out. Because, yes, quotes like this are not good. That's not a ringing endorsement of the franchise.
And I definitely think, as much as we've defended Scott Service, that's a bit on him, too. because he's the guy managing the clubhouse, and it's his responsibility to get these guys to play as a group. And if he couldn't do that, well, that is an indictment on him. So Dan Wilson could be better at that. We couldn't tell in the month he was manager if that's a real impact. I think we'll know a little bit better once the 2025 season is concluded and we see, well, do they play better? Do they play more as a group? That would be one. And then you look to your two stalwarts, and we can, I guess, start with J.P. Crawford because he's pretty veteran. He's a laid back guy, so he's not your rah leader. Cal is, the more of a lead by example guy. Julio, of course, is the star of the team, but he's also still pretty young. I was reading some comments under the original post of this blurb on Twitter. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, this shows that Julio's not the star he's meant to be, and not the leader." And we can argue the bigness of star for Julio. What's up?
The semantics of it, yeah,
like the semantics of it, or like the basis of Julio Rodriguez being a star, yada yada. I mean, we've talked about this on here in baseball terms, but off the baseball field, like we can only speculate really for the most part. But he was 22 in 2023. He's not supposed to lead the team. He could be the best player, but Carlos Santana is still supposed to be the one there going, yeah, but I don't think you're supposed to do that. Like, let's chill out here a little bit. Let's be a little bit more as a collective unit. I hope they fix this because this is something that could absolutely bleed into 2025 and yield similar results to an 86-win frustrating team that missed the playoffs. We can't do that again.
You need good players. You also need players that are going to get along and enjoy being at the ballpark together. It's that simple. And you need a coaching staff who helps build that culture. You need all of it. I don't want more quotes like this. We saw a lot of stuff come out in the second half of 2023, obviously, that nobody was happy to see. We don't want to see more of that in 25. We saw a little bit of it in 24. Let's not see that again.
Do you have any more comments on this, or should we chat about the World Series?
I don't even know how much there is to chat about the World Series before we get to Michael Morales. Honestly, I feel like on Friday's podcast, there will be more to recap because it could very well be over by then. As we're sitting here recording, the Dodgers are up 3-0 and have absolutely manhandled the Yankees so far.
Now, is Aaron Judge acting like a group or an individual, Lyle? Man, he's struggled. People are saying.
Yankee fans are saying.
Can you believe? I really, like, we're being sarcastic here. I can't wrap my mind around the fact there are some Yankee fans who want to boo Aaron Judge, who's, probably at this rate going to go down as one of the 20 best hitters of all time. Lyle, like his peak at least will go down as one of the 20 best peaks ever. And people were talking about booing this man.
Oh, I saw tweets today. Sometimes it's easy to forget how awful some of this Yankee fan base is. And I don't want to say all because we've met some people, especially some people in the baseball content world that are Yankee fans that are awesome and that we've become friends with. If you just want one example, somebody like Peter, obviously it's just baseball, who's great. But man, there's a lot of Yankee fans out there that make you really just roll your eyes and remember, wow, this fan base is toxic. I saw a couple tweets after the game today saying, there is no fan base that's had it worse than Yankee fans, and it's not close. That was a real tweet that got 800 likes.
Sir, you would not last one day in Seattle. Not one.
People say you're built different if you're on the East Coast, if you're a New Yorker. I don't believe that for a second. People say the West Coast is laid back, that it's soft. No. I challenge any Yankees, Red Sox, Dodgers fan, whoever. One day is not enough. I dare you to spend a season watching every Mariner game and then see how you feel. Grass ain't always greener, people. I got a news flash for you.
Now think about this, Yankee fans, if you want to present it in very realistic terms. Imagine losing Alex Rodriguez instead of signing him. That's what life is like as a Mariner fan. You guys wouldn't know that because A-Rod never left. That's what the people are saying.
Do we dare say signing A-Rod was not a smart strategy?
Did the Yankees win a World Series with A-Rod now? Oh, yeah. Fun.
Oops.
And they signed more guys, too. And they signed a bunch of guys on their current roster in the World Series, though are down 3-0. So Yankees lineup has been a massive disappointment. Obviously, because they spent way too much money on it. Just like the rotation that they also spent a ton of money on, which, in a somewhat serious note, I'm a little surprised how, on paper, I feel like the Yankees have a better rotation when you stack it up. And they probably should have won Game 1 and not given up a walk-off grand slam to Freddie Freeman, but for the most part, I was really this series looked like a 6 to 7 game series. But I actually don't buy this Yankees rotation all that much past Garrett Cole. What happens when you get past Garrett Cole? Carlos Rodon, Clark Schmidt, Luis Gil? I just kind of shrug. Like saying the same thing about the Dodgers.
Yeah. I still feel a little bit better when you throw Yamamoto out there and Walker Buehler. I mean, I know Walker Buehler didn't have a good year, but he's pitched in the postseason. He's got postseason experience. And he can be really good. Oh, and Jack Flaherty. Yeah, I kind of like that a little bit better than what you have past Garrett Cole. There's just not much.
Mm-hmm. And it is going to be a big deflator if the Yankees get swept. But you can't you can't control these outcomes, and the Dodgers will now finally win a full season World Series, and for good reason, because they spent a lot of money, and they're going to be definitely going to be rewarded because of it. I'm glad. Even though there's a sweep, though, I'm glad we got a signature moment. I will say that Freddie Freeman homer, one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Like the fact that it was hit at the same minute as the Kirk Gibson home run. Joe Davis tied it in with his call, which I thought was fantastic. If you forget the Vin Scully call, I mean when he called the Kirk Gibson home run, his call was "she's gone," and Joe Davis did the same thing. Almost, I feel like he definitely did that on purpose, where he's like adapting on the fly, walk-off home run to right field in Game 1 of the World Series. Both hit at 8:37 p.m. It's a super cool moment. Unfortunately, that's going to be the climax of this World Series.
Did you just stamp a sweep before it's even happened?
Sure. Do you want me to guarantee it?
Well,
okay.
You just guaranteed it.
Okay, fine. I guarantee a Dodger sweep.
Well, I can't wait for this podcast to come out on Wednesday because
great.
Then we'll know.
Roast me in the comments. I'm never wrong.
No, we're never, ever wrong on this podcast. That's just how it goes.
No.
Kyle Tucker's going to be a Mariner, people. We're days away from bringing it back. You think we forgot? No, we didn't forget.
Kyle, you didn't think you could hide from us?
No.
Did you?
No, you can't. Sorry, you can run, but you can't hide. Okay, I think we're just about ready to get to Michael Morales. Before that, let's talk to you guys about our friends over at Pagacci's Pub 85. There was a sports equinox here on Monday, people. You don't get many of those on the calendar. And when you have days like that, and you have times of the year when there's all these sporting events going on, you need a place to watch everything. So head over there. Pub 85, there's 20 TVs. If you want to play some games with your friends, there's darts, and there's pool, and there's awesome food. And there's $3 and $4 drink specials. If you go during happy hour, those are Monday through Friday from 2 to 6 p.m. Again, that's happy hour, 2 to 6 p.m. on Monday through Friday. So all of that, a great time with your friends, is over at Pagacci's Pub 85 in Kirkland.
You got to meet Mike Morales before I did, so you got to kind of tell me a little bit more about him before we had him on. I want to be honest, and I want to portray this as clearly as possible to our listeners and all of you wonderful people who are watching our nice, crispy HD feed now on YouTube. Go subscribe to the YouTube. Go check out the new setup Lyle and I have. But the way you describe Mike Morales, like it almost feels like you'd want to hang out with him. Like just sit in a room and just chat about something. He's not afraid to rip off a hot take. He's not afraid to roast somebody. He's not afraid to also just break down baseball. Like, he's been now a Mariner for 3 full seasons. He has been through the ringer, and he has come out the other side as a co-Mariners minor league pitcher of the year. And it's cool to hear him come full circle and acknowledge like where he started, where he is now, and manage to, make fun of the whole situation. And it's also very blatantly clear. All those AA guys, such good friends together, and it's cool to hear about their chemistry. You'll hear it in the interview.
We've really ripped through this AA rotation. I mean, we had Reed on last year, Reed Van Scooter. Obviously, we've had Logan on. We've had Brandon on. We've had now Morales on. All of them are awesome. And hopefully you guys all know this from listening to these interviews, and once you listen to this interview with Michael Morales, but all super easy guys to root for. Again, I hope these guys all get a chance to absolutely thrive in the big leagues for the Mariners, because they're all really easy to root for. And like you said, this was a fun conversation. You kind of already said it, but it's got a little bit of everything, from some serious stuff and breaking down how he's improved as a pitcher over the last few years to, a lot of funny stuff in there too. So hopefully you enjoy the interview. We certainly did. And we're Michael Morales fans, that's for sure. We're rooting for that guy to absolutely kill it in 2025 and moving forward too. So hopefully you enjoy.
Let's get you that interview now with Michael Morales. All right, we got Mariners co-minor league pitcher of the year, Michael Morales, on with us. We talked to Brandon Garcia a couple of weeks ago, and now here we are talking with Michael. Thanks for taking some time to join us here today. I wanted to start with some hair comparisons. So first off, is it safe to say, do you think that you have top 5 hair in the org?
In the org? See, now I got to think on that. I think there's some pretty good hair in the org. Yeah, I'll take myself. Yeah, I think I got top 5 in the org. I'll take it.
Do you have? So we're trying to figure it out before we started recording. Like, my hair comparison for you is Hayden Christensen, who plays Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars. You're not a huge Star Wars guy, so I'm going to throw it to you. Like, you said you feel pretty unique, but if you were to try and draw like a close comparison to what you resemble, like, who is it?
On my good days, I would say, like, with the waviness in the hair, oh shoot, now I'm blanking on his name. The guy who passed away from Fast and Furious. I'm gonna get crucified for forgetting his name. Blonde-haired guy, Fast and Furious. He passed away in a car accident. Like, in actual real life, he passed away. What the heck's his name? Paul Walker? Is it Paul Walker?
Yes, I think that's what it is.
Okay. Yeah, I would say, like, just with the kind of the shape of the hair, maybe on good days, maybe I'll go with him.
Because you have a long version and a short version too.
Yeah. I like the medium version. Kind of what I got going on now is more ideal. Everett, I just kind of got lazy and was just letting it go. Wise choice though in cutting it. I cut it at the right time.
All right, so aside from you, who else in the org do you look at and say, oh, he has pretty good locks?
Jeter Martinez. I was walking back from the stadium today. We were doing conditioning over there and I was following him, and he's got some wavy hair. And it's funny that you mentioned it, because I literally remember walking behind him having the thought, like, dang, dude's got some pretty good hair. So I'd probably say that's the last guy that I just thought of.
I love it. Okay, I wanted to ask you this too, by the way, because you grew up in Pennsylvania, but I was reading you were a Red Sox fan growing up. So how does that work?
My grandma was a Red Sox fan. So was my mom. So just whenever I was growing up during the summer, if there was a game on the TV, it was the Red Sox. So I kind of just fell right into it. And then when I was young, obviously my dad's from New York. So he's not really a baseball guy, but just like whenever they play each other, he'd be a Yankees fan. So obviously, like, I learned about the rivalry really quick, and then like 03-04 in the 2 runs that they had, and then obviously coming back from the 3-0 deficit, and then, like, once I was a little kid and found that out and saw that, I was hooked.
So were you a Pedroia Poppy guy, or were you like a Jacoby Ellsbury guy? Like, who was it for you?
All of them. I mean, all of them. Yeah, I would say. Yeah, I mean, 'cause I remember, like, just being so excited, especially as a kid, like, just watching, like, when Jacoby would come up, and when just, like, I thought he was the fastest dude on, like, planet Earth. Like, I just always thought that was always, like, so fun to watch, just steal bags. He was always like, it always seemed like he was doing something crazy on the base paths. And then Pedroia, just because he was a small guy, grinder, and then obviously Poppy's Poppy. But yeah, I mean, I loved, like, everything. I loved the whole dynamic of the team.
So I don't know if you ever talked to Brandon about this, and I will preface this by saying Brandon said he didn't grow up the biggest sports fan in the world, but he said growing up in Connecticut, he goes, I was a fan of the Yankees and the Red Sox, and every year I would kind of fluctuate with my fan. Yeah, so let me ask you as a Red Sox fan, how do we feel about that?
That's not even a real take. Like, I don't even think, like, you can put any, like, weight behind that. That's like, dude, you just didn't watch sports. Like, if that's your take, like, you just didn't watch sports. But I'm gonna talk to him about that tomorrow, because that's the craziest thing you could ever say. in my opinion. Like, I feel like if you're just a baseball fan, you can't say that. Like, if you just watch baseball, it's like that just doesn't work.
So, because you look up to a lot of baseball players now, I'm not going to use the word hate, but when you watch the Yankees growing up, which player rubbed you the wrong way the most?
A-Rod, Teixeira, Swisher, which is honestly crazy now, like, especially like with social media being such a big thing and like everybody being on social media. It's so cool to like actually realize like, oh, I mean, I don't really know them personally, so I can't put too much weight into it, but like they all seem like great people. So like I think that's so funny, but like, dude, when I watch them in pinstripes, I was like, these guys are jerks. But yeah, I would say like those three probably that came to mind so quick.
You know, it's funny you say that because I guess we're going to give you a little Mariners history lesson here. But when A-Rod left the Mariners to go to Texas, even to this day, a lot of Mariners fans don't love A-Rod just in terms of
Really?
how, yeah, it's weird. Now, if you were to ask me, or you could ask TJ too, I like the guy. I wasn't old enough to remember like the animosity that went on when he left town. But just to your point, seeing him on social media and seeing how he is and seeing how involved he is with the game, I was like, yeah, he seems really cool. But if you ask fans that are a generation ahead of where I guess we are about A-Rod and the Mariners, people are not happy with the guy. So it's funny you say that as a Yankee fan too, because there's some similarities. Or sorry, as a Red Sox fan.
But we also realize, Lyle, that he's the best shortstop the franchise has ever had, clearly. So, like, that helps a lot. So that's where our soft spot comes from.
Yeah, the guy was amazing. I wonder if we would have felt differently if we had watched him growing up and then saw him leave. Obviously, he's the best shortstop the franchise has had, but I am curious. Like, what do you think? Do you think we feel different?
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but I'd say we're in a different state now than how we viewed people leaving for more money a little while ago.
I was going to say, I think there's more of an understanding about it. Okay, Michael, I want to ask you too, speaking of being a Red Sox fan, you got to pitch at Fenway in high school? Like, what's the story behind that? Was it a showcase?
It was, what do they call it? They called it the Rivalry Classic, and to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure how it came about, but I know, like, you've heard of like East Coast Pro and Area Code and stuff like that? Okay, so for the Northeast region, guys that would make the East Coast Pro or Area Code team would also kind of get invited to play like a part of the Rivalry Classic. And then the first time I did it was the Rivalry Classic, just playing against like other prospects. And then I got a chance to do it a second time, and it was against Cape teams. So it was like when the Cape League was going on, and then the Cape does, I guess, like a pro day at Fenway, and then at night they like play the high school kids, which I thought was strange, but Fen did great for ourselves.
Yeah, you remember that, Lyle? Because Michael, we did a couple of summers in the Cape League, and we went to Fenway a couple times, but our teams were never in that night game. You could have probably played a future big leaguer, I assume. Like, there were future big leaguers who would play in those showcases at Fenway.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
Do you remember who you went against?
No. They were they were kind of all college guys, so I didn't really like think about like even really paying that much attention, and I was just so caught up in the moment. But yeah, I don't really remember who I faced. I remember one guy, and that he was like right-handed. That's it. I like barely remember. I guess I kind of just blacked out for it.
I hate to bring it up, but was the guy that was right-handed, is that who took you deep at Fenway?
Oh, no. Okay, so that one I did not black out for. That one I have like full memory of, unfortunately. That was the first time I went there. I think the kid was committed to UNC, I think. I forget his name. I think he was going to UNC. He took me deep. That one was weird. So I came in, I think we played like 12 innings that day or something like that. And then since I was the youngest, I threw last. So I came in for like the 12th inning. Volpe actually was playing shortstop that day. Yeah, so I remember I get on the mound. First guy, I think his name was like Cole Tucker or something. Could be completely wrong on that. But some Tucker dude like flew out, left-handed hitter, flew out the center. And then I get on the mound, and like I hear coming from like shortstop, like step off. I'm like, oh, like that's weird. Like what could be possibly going on? He's like Volpe's pointing to first base. And there's a runner getting on. And Jack Bolger was catching. I think he's still at Vandy right now. Jack Bolger was catching. So just me being young and overthinking, I was like, oh, like late in the game, they're just putting this guy in to run. And they just want to see like jack throw or something, like something weird. So I was like, I'll just throw a first pitch fastball. And this kid clears it out of the stadium. Like the signs that I remember watching, like seeing all the time, just right over it into the parking lot. And I was, yeah. So the stadium plays pretty small when the ball goes up, unfortunately.
Smaller than Everett?
Felt like it that day.
I gotta ask, how do you pitch at Everett?
Because you thrived.
Honestly, I think one thing that made it so easy is like how well run our minor league system is. Like how good of a job they do breaking down like what actually matters in the Mariners, like when it comes in terms of pitching. The short porch really just, it didn't matter. Like, it's there. And the more that you try to like kind of steer away from it is probably when you're going to get beat for it. So I knew kind of like what mattered, like what we valued. And I knew like if I gave up a solo shot to center on a bleeder, like it wouldn't be that big of a deal outside of the game. And then when it comes down to the game, really the only chance that I would have is just being fully committed over the plate, like I was pitching in a normal stadium. And I hopefully can just look back at the end of the day and they don't hit that many out. And I kind of got lucky in that sense.
So you wouldn't have to change up that much on the road then?
No, not really. No, it was, it was the same mindset, to be honest with you. Like, just treated it like it was a normal place. It's still 60 feet, 6 inches. And once the ball kind of leaves my hand, I can't really control it all that much. So I kept that in the forefront of my focus. And then, the stadium, especially like pitching in Everett, shouldn't really have that big of an effect. And it helped a lot, like, especially with runners in scoring positions. It really, like, that mindset kind of helped me not do too much there.
You mentioned how much the Mariners plan resonated with you. What were those early conversations like when you're talking about your arsenal with the org and coming up with a plan of how to attack hitters? Yeah,
so one thing that we did, that was fresh in spring training was we added the gyro slider. And then that one, like when we brought that up in conversation, it was more just hopefully that I can throw it for a high strike percentage and a high quality pitch percentage. And then it can be useful to both sides of the plate in early and behind counts. So one thing that they did really, really well was when we were, and I mean, still obviously in terms of like building the arsenal, but like, especially when we were still like trying to playing like plug and play with different pitches. They were always very informative of like what this pitch's purpose would be, if that makes sense. So then once they kind of explained the purpose and how to achieve what you were trying to do, it kind of just came like up to you to figure out how to piece it in, if that makes sense.
I want to ask a little bit about your pitching mentality, because I saw you talk about in an article this year, something that I don't think you hear from a lot of people, but I thought it was super interesting. You said when you get out of starts, the last thing you do once you exit the game is think about the pitches you just threw throughout the course of your outing. You were saying, yeah, if there's a sunset, I'll try to look at the sunset. I'll try to look at if there's birds flying around. You basically drown it out, which I feel like a lot of people have a really, really hard time doing that, especially right after they come out of a game. So especially for being as young as you are, how have you channeled that?
Well, I mean, so actually that's like in between innings. That's what I'm doing, like just coming off the mound. And for me, it just, part of it is like I'm playing professional baseball and I've wanted to do that since I was a kid. When I was in class, looking out the windows, like dreaming of like the days like this, just like grinding through the minor leagues, potentially, working to become a big leaguer, just all of it. I just take it in, like just when I'm going out and I'm looking at the birds or I'm taking in the sunset, like just trying to remember and take in as much as possible, like where I am, where I'm playing, and just being grateful for it. And I feel like that's one thing that kind of takes the anxiety away, because then you remember what you're doing, if that makes sense.
And you've also talked a little bit about when you come off the mound and when you're done, you have in the past been pretty negative about how you feel like you pitched out there. Are you at the point now, at the end of your third full season of the Mariners organization, winning co-minor league pitcher of the year, where you're to the point where you're a little more positive for your outings when you're done?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that honestly, that like that started before winning the award. I would say that that's probably one thing that really helped achieve something like that. But yeah, I mean, just being extremely hard on myself was definitely a downfall, especially like early on, like the first 2 years. Like it wasn't just last year. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of like one thing that we had a conversation about it in spring training. I think like when I was just talking with the pitching coordinator and things like that, like we all kind of realized like how hard I was being on myself. And I was being unrealistic with like what I was being hard on myself about. And I think like that was one thing, like we just kind of, got some clarity. And then I was able to kind of realize how to slow things down and almost how to perceive things in like maybe not the correct lens, but a better lens, if that even makes sense at all.
Like I would imagine as a third round pick, you were feeling a little bit of pressure. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody. I think anybody, no matter where you're drafted, like you just want to get in and perform. When you're zooming out, you want to perform over the course of a season, and when you zoom in, you want to perform over the course of night to night. And I think being extremely hard on myself was kind of adding to the fuel.
Let me just preface, or like, let me just contextualize it with this, just for everybody listening, and to be fair, because you're certainly not the only person that does that and is hard on yourself and wants the best out of yourself, as you should. But looking at where you're at now, especially with the year you had you hypothetically gone to college, you would have been draft eligible this year. So you're talking about for yourself, you just won minor league pitcher of the year, 21 years old, when a lot of guys your age are just getting drafted. So to see where you've started and now are at this point in your minor league career, there's got to be some, like, I don't know if full circle moment's the right word, but just some realization of like, oh, this is pretty cool. I'm really doing this thing.
Yeah, no, definitely very grateful for it all, especially and I guess it's fair to say like just proud, in the sense of the corner I was kind of able to turn and begin to piece different things together.
This is going to be a bit of a two-part question. But the first part, I just want you to try and describe like what was that 2022 season like for you? Your first full season in the Mariners organization. You really did struggle for a full season down in Modesto. What was that like for you?
I think lost. I was lost. I think, the biggest thing was I was trying to figure out, I was trying to figure out myself. So I think there was a sense of feeling lost identity wise. I didn't understand what made me, especially when I was still trying to improve. So I think, to a sense of I was kind of just aimlessly searching for something. Like I didn't even have a true sense of direction of like where I was trying to go within myself. I think the lack of a routine, which kind of fits into that, because that was one of the things that I was really searching for, like just what gets me prepared for a night, trying to understand. Like I think in the beginning I had nothing at all. Early on in the 2022 season, I was just kind of rolling out, and I was just trying to hope that I was warm enough. Then starting to piece in different things that I knew like throughout the day or throughout a specific outing that I felt like I was getting tight in. Then I would start attacking that before my next outing. So there was just not much method behind my madness, which is, obviously like it was something that was very different for me, especially because I was always very specific in everything that I was doing. And then it just felt like I had so much time and I didn't know what to fill that time with. But yeah, so I mean, that was the number one thing, was just extremely lost. Didn't have much of an idea where I needed to go to achieve what I was trying to achieve.
Was that just youthful inexperience? Was that you feeling like overwhelmed by being a professional at 18? What do you think that was?
I think it was more just not having the experience, not quite understanding what I need and what it looks like, if that makes sense.
So you said you started to fill a lot of time, or like you didn't know how to fill all that time. How did you start to fill it? Like, what did you start to figure out? It's like, oh, this works, or this isn't for me, or like, and then you started to find a routine. So what were some of those things?
So random. I mean, when I first started trying to fill the holes, like I started trying to go to like arm care, extra movement prep. I would try to throw in like random foam rolling or extra med balls, or I would start trying to like add stuff to my lifts. So I think that was probably like the biggest thing. Was in some areas I wasn't doing enough in prep, and then in other areas like lifts I would kind of venture off and do more because I was trying to fill the gaps in that I was lacking, that I didn't quite understand, if that makes sense.
that 2022 the 22-23 off season, your first off season after a full year, that was the start of your progression to where you are right now, because you had to do Modesto again, but you did significantly better, and it earned you to start in Everett this past season. So how crucial is that off season to get you to where you are right now?
Extremely important. It helped it helped me lay myself a foundation of just being on time with what I need to do when I need to do it, and beginning to add the things that I need to do. I think that's where kind of my routine started to fold, or started to kind of mold together. I think that's when I started to have a better idea how to fill that time, because how much more time do you have when you're at home in the off season? So there's, I was facing kind of the same conflict with a lot of time on my hands. And then it really kind of got me to be able to start at least figuring out like time management of what I need to do and when I need to do it.
How important was it for you to add some non-baseball things in too, to just take your mind off of it?
Extremely important. Yeah. I mean, especially because the only thing that was really on my mind in 22 was baseball. I think like that was, part of the identity piece. Like I was a baseball player in 2022. Like that was my identity. Because I was struggling. When I started struggling, I felt like I just had to go deeper into it. Which was, I wish I would have just kind of taken a step back and went fishing, or just went and relaxed and like felt like treated myself like a human, not just like a baseball player. But yeah, I that was one of the biggest things.
I'm glad we're breaking up the baseball talk a little bit here, because I am curious, when you're away from the field, when you're in the off season, what do you like to do? Because like we heard Brandon and Logan both say they like to play video games, they like to golf, things like that. When you had downtime away from the park, or when you're in the off season, like what do you fill your time with?
That off season, especially, like I was going golfing a lot. Just being away from family, I would just pack my mom into a golf cart and go golf in freezing cold December Pennsylvania when the ground's frozen. So I mean, that was one thing. A lot of golf, fish if I can, hunt whenever I can. Spend a lot of time though at the gun range, as weird as that might sound. I try to shoot a lot. I like the focus. Like you have to be turned on. You have to be focused. You have to be locked in. Especially, I mean, there's just a lot of safety. I mean, I go to a public gun range too, so it's not like I'm just on my land, kind of just shooting around and doing whatever I want. So you have to be very dialed, and I like that, because it's not just like a video game where I'm just like, oh, I want to be dialed because I want to do good. It almost kind of feels like baseball. Like the focus, I'm trying to get better at something, but I also have to be fully focused to do this well and safely.
Is that something you grew up doing?
Yeah, my dad was in the military. So I grew up whenever I could with him. We'd go shoot, we'd go hunt. He'd take me to work with him up, there's a military base called Indiantown Gap, like 30, 40 minutes away from my house. So he'd take me up there and we would do some really cool stuff.
When it freezes in Pennsylvania and you're trying to get out on the links, what are you even paying to golf? It cannot be more than what, $20, right?
Yeah, no, I think I want to say like 16 if I remember correctly. Yeah. I think it's like 16, $20.
Well, it's probably not fun to play out in 20 degrees, but when you look at your bank account at the end and say, well, we only paid $16, like that's fun.
Yeah, it's miserable. The nice pick-me-ups when they have hot chocolate. That's what I live for.
Does the frozen ground help, or does it deter your golf game?
To be honest with you, that's a good question. I would like to say it helps, because whenever I start to spray the ball, like all I want to do is just hit it low and just let it run. And when it's frozen, I mean, that thing will run forever. So I would say it probably helps a little bit, because whenever the winter comes around, like I just start hitting everything low and just let it run, and I'll get up there when I get up there. So yeah, probably helps.
Who was the best golfer of the AA guys you played with this year?
Shrek was pretty good before he got traded. He was doing well. Actually, I'm pretty sure the day I was golfing, we were all golfing with him the day he got traded. I'm pretty sure he was lights out that day. Logan's pretty good. If he's locked in, he's locked in. If he's not, it's going to be a long day. But I mean, we're all that way. It's just more with him because he hits the ball so incredibly far. Like when you stand behind Logan hit a golf ball, it's seriously like the Happy Gilmore scene. Like when he just hits the ball and it just like the camera's just following it. Like it seriously looks like every drive he hits goes like 500, and he swings as hard as humanly possible. But yeah, I'd probably say Shrek. Shrek was good when it came down to feel. Logan has good feel, but Logan also just wants to kind of really step on it. So I'd probably Shrek. I'm gonna get some heat for that. Hopefully, not many people watch this podcast because I'm gonna hear about that tomorrow.
Well, that actually sounds pretty on brand for Logan. I'm going to be honest.
Oh, he can't deny that. He's just probably gonna wish that I gave him more credit. Don't get me wrong, he's good. He's really, really good. If I had to go up against him one-on-one, he's probably gonna take me majority of the time, unless I get in his head and he starts going neighborhood to neighborhood.
Are you guys a big trash talking group when you guys go play, or is it just respect?
Yeah. No, it's a lot of trash talk. Yeah. I mean, we're always like I see Logan picks me up at like 7:30 every morning, and it's 4 out of the 7 days it's probably starting with trash talk at 7:30. As soon as the door opens.
Do you get the brunt of it because you're like the youngest?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
So it comes from him. It's not like you get in the car at 7:30 and start chirping. It's as soon as you get in the car with Logan, he starts, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, there's like if it's gonna start, it's when the door opens. If I'm gonna start it, I'll usually close the door, then I'll like start saying something smart. But and then it gets rolling. Like most times, we're probably walking into the facility arguing. There was actually a funny video. Logan and I don't know what we were debating about. We were, I think a certain pitch or something like that. We were talking about, and his mom recorded it, and like somebody hit a single and the camera panned like up the first base line, and you just see Logan like with a ball in his hand just like pointing and yelling at me because I was disagreeing with whatever point he was trying to make, which I'm pretty sure I was correct about.
Sounds about right. Well, a bunch of guys said you were the hot takes one of the group, but doesn't mean hot takes are always wrong.
Yeah, I agree. Oh yeah, I mean, I'll if somebody's like in a conversation, I just like to stir the pot. So like if I like walk past a conversation that like somebody's like debating, I'm 100% going to drop something in that's just completely sideways. Should not need to be in the point, but I'm going to send it, start another argument, and then I'll leave.
Do you have a good hot take for us?
I made him give one when he was in Seattle, but we'll see if he has another.
Yeah, I forget what I said. Let me think. I'm trying to think because this one like people are actually watching this, so I can't go too absurd, and then people are going to be like, oh my gosh, this kid actually has no brain.
Let me preface it while you're thinking with this, Michael. We have had major leaguers on this podcast that may or may not have been Taylor Saucedo, who said Babe Ruth is a fictional character. He's not real.
I saw that video. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a hot take. That was a good one. That was actually a good one.
It's funny to hear what like people talk about it in the dugout or in the bullpen in the minors. And by the way, it sounds like that group's pretty close knit. Like not only were all you guys really good, but it sounds like especially that group of you guys in that rotation, we're all friends and all love to pick each other's brains.
Yeah. I mean, the Mariners do an amazing job. Like I haven't been here forever, but like I've seen a couple draft classes come in, obviously, and like especially the guys like from my draft class. Like it doesn't seem like they get bad eggs, and like I'm not even just saying that because like I'm employed by them. Like they genuinely, however many people are in the farm system, like is how many good people there are in that system. It's just everybody you meet, like even the new draft guys, like they just fit in, and it just flows. It's honestly crazy. Like I don't know how they do it. I don't know what they look for because they find talent too. They find a ton of talent, but it's crazy like to see the talent that they bring in, and then like the human being that comes with that talent.
Well, I was going to say, we asked Brandon this question, so we'll ask you it too. Did you watch Durangelo throw with both arms?
I got there to watch, and then I was in the middle I was having a conversation, and I didn't really get to see like that much of it. But I did recently, because we started throwing again, have had the chance to watch him like doing plyos and throwing from both sides. Dude, it's crazy. It really is. Like, you would not want to see me throw a baseball left-handed. And then to think that like he's professional, like first round pick, at both sides, like I got nothing. That's the craziest thing I've ever seen, to be honest with you.
That's what I said. Well, Brandon was talking about when we talked to him. If I throw right-handed, I can at least stretch the ball out.
Yeah, dude.
Was he lying about this? He can't actually get it 60 feet.
I saw it. No, I saw the thing. Logan and I were watching the pod. I'm being extremely honest. Logan and I were watching the podcast, and we saw that. We both like looked at each other like, dude, what are you talking about? But yeah, I don't know if he could. I don't know. What did he say? Like 80 something, 84?
That's what he said. Or well, he said he could stretch it out to at least like 60, 90 feet in long toss or whatever. Where I'm like you, I pick up a baseball left-handed. There's no chance I'm getting it 10 feet.
I'll take the long toss because like you can change the angle and like add some distance, but I don't know. 84 is pretty firm. That's firm.
That is very firm. I mean, you're getting close to what Durangelo throws from the left side, if that's the case, because they say he's more developed from the right side, but from the left side, you're still talking low to mid 90s.
Yeah, what's he? It's like 98 from the right, 90 what from the left? I do that, and I only have one working arm to throw with. But Edwin Arroyo, I don't know if you guys remember him from my draft class. Edwin threw right and left-handed, and Edwin could actually sling it too. Like he's like maybe the closest guy that I've ever seen that I would like really like to see like him and Durangelo like throw together and do it. Because he threw to me a couple times in Modesto from the left side, and I was like, dang, dude, like if you warmed up, like I bet that would actually be pretty hard. So yeah, he could really sling it though from the left side.
How'd you get the nickname Moose, by the way? I wanted to ask you this.
Yeah, it's actually extremely random. I was like 7 years old or something like that. We were doing this like round robin, like little league tournament. And I think we made it to the championship, and they were like going to announce names. And then like a part of the like little announcements, they wanted to have a nickname with your announcement. So we were like sitting in this pizza shop or something like that, and I needed a nickname. Like most of the guys like on the team like kind of already had like nicknames, and I just did not at all. And my parents called me Michael. And so they're going around the table. I think like they were coming up with like Michael Motorcycle, like just horrendous nicknames. And then all of a sudden, it was the coach's kid was like, how about like Moose? And that everyone was just like, I think that's absolutely perfect. So let's just go with that. And I was like, all right, like whatever. It's one game. It won't stick. And it stuck. I mean, like my family calls me Moose. Like most like close people kind of call me Moose back home, which is really weird.
It's still in the minors too, they call you that?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like one thing, like especially like with the mascot and everything. Like when I signed and I got to Seattle, like I saw the Mariner Moose, and I was like, we're not bringing like this in. Like this is no one's good. Like, you guys can say this like at home because like it's been there, but like we're not like don't yell at baseball games. Like keep that hush hush. And I think it was last year in Modesto, somebody from my hometown like emailed the Modesto Nuts and was like, hey, by the way, like his nickname back here is Moose. You should announce him as Moose. And I hear nothing. Like whenever I'm starting and stuff like that, like as in tune as I am with like what's going on around me, like I don't really hear that much. And I hear like over the loudspeakers in Modesto, like Moose. And I was like, no shot. It's here. Yeah. So yeah, but like long-winded, just got it in a pizza shop for a 7U baseball game.
That had to throw you off. You're like standing up there on the bump, like locked in, like let's let's do this. And you're like,
I was warming up in the outfield. I was like long tossing, and I just hear like Michael Moose Morales, and I was like, what in the world was that? And then like it's panned on me, and I was like, oh my gosh, like they're talking about me. They just announced me as Moose, and so yeah, that's what started it.
Did you ever figure out who sent the email? Did you trace it back anywhere, or did people try to hide it?
I forget. Originally I thought it was my parents, and then they swore they didn't do it. So then I asked. I'm pretty sure I asked like one of the media guys at Modesto, and I forget who they said. I'm pretty sure it was one of my neighbors. To be honest with you, I think it was one of my neighbors Probably lives like right down the street.
You mentioned when you went to Seattle. I want to pick your brain a little bit when you were up there. How was that experience? Did you get to have any memorable conversations with anyone on the big league team or anything like that?
I mean, it was amazing. It was a lot of fun. Obviously, like never really been to the West Coast that much, just besides area codes when I was in high school. Like I was like a freshman or something like that. We went out. That was the only time I'd been to the West Coast. It was really cool just being out there, seeing something new. The day at the stadium was fun. I had a heart procedure when I was out there, so like my trip was kind of haywire. Like it wasn't that smooth. It was kind of hectic on the medical side. But yeah, I mean, got to enjoy the game from the box. Like that was sick. I'd never really been in like a big league suite before. I didn't get to really meet like players or anything like that. So I didn't see my first time actually seeing the clubhouse and everything like that was when I just came up. But I mean, just meeting everybody, like you notice right away, kind of like what I just said about people. Like it started right away. Everybody in Seattle were amazing people. They made it a great time. I signed with Edwin, so that was a lot of fun. And I mean, just the experience of it all, especially like at that age, like I was blown away.
We need to follow up. You're okay, I assume.
Yeah. It was I forget what it was something. When my heart beat, something happened and they had to fix it. I forget exactly like what the medical terminology is, but yeah, UW actually. Shout out to UW. Yeah, they got me right on that.
So when you were here this time, I know you were just talking about when you came to town, when you signed with Edwin, what your whole experience was like. But when you were in town this time around, when you got the award just a couple weeks ago, was that any different? Like, did you get to meet any people that time?
Yeah. That time we spent. Actually, we spent a decent amount of more time than I expected in the clubhouse. I think it was probably like 30, a little over 30-ish minutes. I got to see Troy. That was obviously super exciting because I was just with him. So yeah, I got to see Troy. Got to pick Troy's brain, just what the big leagues was like. Obviously, he's had a super cool experience just facing the names in the big leagues. So it was cool hearing his takes on how things went and seeing his success, like just seeing him kind of go right back into it. So yeah, that was just kind of hung out, talked to some players, got to see Wu, Bryce, but yeah, a lot of it we were kind of just off to ourselves because we didn't want to be like in the way. Like that was kind of like my fear. Like I didn't want to like go in too far and like be out of place. So I was like, I'm just gonna kind of hang out in the back. Looks cool. Hopefully I get a chance to see it soon.
Oh yeah, you were teammates with those guys, weren't you? With Bryce Miller and Brian Wu.
Yeah, not for long, but yeah, I got to spend a little bit of time with them.
I did have one more baseball question I wanted to ask you because obviously the year you had was awesome, and part of that was your jump from high A to double A, and they always talk about that jump. They say is the hardest jump in the minor leagues. Now, you ended up throwing the ball really well when you got to Arkansas, which was awesome. But I always do wonder, when you jump from high A to double A, is there a noticeable difference when you're taking the mound every week, every fifth day, and you're seeing the hitters, and you're like, oh, this is different?
I think so. I think the first thing that I noticed was they seemed a little bit more physical, a little bit more mature, especially just like from the eye test. And then their approaches generally were a lot better. You could tell like they weren't chasing as much, especially early in the count. Like you weren't getting that many swings out of the zone early in the count. And they were kind of working with you, which it seemed like when I got up there was a little bit more of a chess match, not just kind of throw something at them and hopefully get a swing. They'd spit on really, really good pitches. That was probably the one thing that I really noticed when I got up there. Finish count discipline. Like they were very disciplined in finish counts. You couldn't really just kind of go out there with the same template and just run through them, if that makes sense. You kind of had to pitch a little bit, which made it obviously a ton of fun. But yeah, I would just say that was the kind of the first things that I noticed. Approach was much better, and they were more mature looking.
You mentioned your gyro slider, and this is my last baseball question too before we wrap up with 5 really fun ones. So you mentioned the gyro slider that you added this year. How else had your repertoire evolved this year? As you said, you had to game plan a little bit more. How did that work its way into what you did in day to day?
I would say, I mean, for the most part, like biggest thing that we were working on was a little bit of slider shape. A lot of it was command focused though. Kind of going into this year, there was a big reason why we added the gyro, just hopefully just be over the plate at a higher clip. Um, so that was, to be honest with you, like that was a lot of what the game plans were. Especially like the Mariners gave me such a big arsenal and a diverse arsenal. As long as I was over the plate, we could make a lot of things happen. So in a lot of sense, that was a lot of what it was. When we were going through game planning, maybe like from my standpoint, I might be overcomplicating something a little too much, where maybe I'm giving hitters a little bit too much credit in early counts, and I'm thinking opening up a couple more guys with breaking balls. Whereas, the team and Harry or Chi is just kind of like, dude, relax. Like, stick with the fastball cutter in this count. Go with, change up sweeper, maybe curveball in the finish counts. If you fall behind, we can do this. And that was a lot of what the game planning was. But yeah, I mean, once we added the gyro, helped kind of, in my opinion, help bring the arsenal together a little bit more. Because I had offerings to both sides of the plate to get to two strikes. And then with the pitches that I didn't locate quite as well, we could kind of save those for the finish counts. And a lot of the times the puzzle pieced together pretty well.
Yeah, and the results definitely did show that. You had an awesome year. It's been awesome to see the progression of what you've done in the system the last 3 years.
Thank you.
So we have these five fun questions we like to finish up with. Not totally baseball related, but just to see a little bit more of your personality. So the first question, your go-to pregame and postgame meal is what?
Postgame, I would say, this might sound like bougie, but we got crab legs and steak a couple times. That was obviously exciting. So I'd probably put that as my favorite post game. Pre-game, I like to keep it simple. I can honestly go with a sandwich, maybe a wrap, chicken and rice. Like if I see chicken and rice, especially on like a start day, I'm all in. Yeah, so especially if I'm pitching. Now, is that what you meant though? Like on pre-game post on days that I pitch? Okay. Yeah. Chicken and rice on the pregame, and then if they want to splurge a little bit on the steak and crab legs, I'm not going to complain.
Who's putting their card down for that?
The Mariners actually. Yeah, thank you to them.
Your 3 favorite TV shows ever, Michael, or what?
SpongeBob is number one. That's 1-1 for me. Suits is up there. I just watched Suits in the off season. Thank you. Yeah, I love Suits. And 3, I liked Yellowstone. I was really hooked on Yellowstone. I think Outer Banks could have made a run in there, but in my opinion, the last couple seasons kind of fell off. But yeah, Yellowstone, SpongeBob, 100%. And I completely forget what I just said for the third. But yeah, those 3. Suits, yes, my bad.
You might be the first person we've asked that said SpongeBob. So now I got to follow up. What is your favorite SpongeBob episode?
Oh, jeez. There's so many. I think like when SpongeBob and Sandy go to Texas, that one's pretty good. What else? I think probably my actual maybe favorite episode, I don't know if it's considered an episode, was like the SpongeBob movie that came out in like the early 2000s. Yeah. I think that was, I don't know if that was considered a movie or an episode, because I thought it was an episode, but then it was like the length of a movie. So I'm not 100% sure how it's classified. But if I can go with that answer, that one I could watch forever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was a full movie. I went to go see that in the theaters when it came out. I'm a goofy goober.
I love it.
The next question is, what would you be doing if you weren't playing baseball?
I mean, I would love to get into coaching, but I would say like if I had to go with something outside of baseball, probably police. I think like something in law enforcement. I would really like, and just like the baseball. Like I don't think I could ever go to like an ordinary type of day. Like I just think I would need like every day to be different. And just just be out in the community and actually feel like I'm like making an impact. So yeah, probably law enforcement.
So if it was baseball, you'd almost need to be like an executive. You need to like feel like be in charge.
No, I mean honestly, just any type of coaching. I do anything. I would I always make jokes to like everybody like one day I'm gonna be a GM. I don't know if like I'd actually ever want to go down that route because that's a pretty busy job. But yeah, I think honestly no, I don't really need to be in charge that way. Like anything, just pitching coach, assistant, something, anything around the game.
Have you threatened to trade anyone on their roster? It's like I'm gonna be GM one day. Don't cross me.
I tell Logan that all the time.
Who, Michael, is your favorite all-time baseball player?
David Ortiz or Pedro. I'd probably say David Ortiz just because I actually got to really watch him. So probably David Ortiz.
Where was Manny on that list?
He's up there. I'm not gonna lie though, it felt like I couldn't imagine like actually being a fan like at that time. Felt like Manny stressed me out and I was like 6 years old. But he was always coming through. So he's up there. Manny's probably I don't know. I love like all the Red Sox player. He's top 10, 100%. Top 5, I mean, like Pedroia's in my top 5, Jacoby's in my top 5. Julio Lugo, I don't know if you guys remember Julio. Dude, I loved him. More just for the name, but
You're a real ball knower. You're dropping names like Julio Lugo. Like you watched a lot of baseball growing up. I'm picking up on that.
oh my gosh. Yeah, if they play 164 or something like that in the big leagues, I was probably watching at least over 155. Like I was not missing that many games. It'd be rare if I was missing a Red Sox game.
The last question is the best and worst baseball road trip you've been on is what?
Leo Rivas told us a story that they got to a hotel once when he was in the minors and they were in the lobby for 4 hours in the middle of the night because the rooms weren't ready. And then they got to the rooms. There was no AC in a place that was really hot. So, okay. If you haven't had a story like that, that's good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, no, I haven't had anything like that. It did feel like though everywhere we went in the Texas League, like the AC was not working. Like that was one thing. We stayed. I think like there was rumor that like the hotel in Spokane was haunted, which there was some weird stuff that went down in that hotel like middle of the night that I woke up to. Like there was it seemed like every time that I was there was always something going on. So I don't know if that was like mind playing games, but actual horror stories, not really. I mean, they were all pretty smooth. Nothing like I think like one trip we were on, like I think like one of the buses like got in a car accident or something like that. But like somebody clipped like the back of the bus, something weird. But I've honestly been really fortunate to have smooth trips. Anything though that's like long, obviously, is kind of brutal. Like I had a trip from I think Springfield to Midland in the playoffs that there was one sleeper bus and then there was one regular bus. And I don't know what I was doing, but I was on like the regular seated bus. That was the worst trip of my life. Like it felt like the seats are like this wide. You're trying to like lay down. It's a 12-hour bus ride. That one was miserable just in terms of comfort, not sleeping. Best, you can also probably put that one in the best category at the same time. We had a lot of fun on that road trip, especially coming after from beating Springfield in Springfield. Everybody was just having a good time playing games on the bus. So yeah, I would say like in the same question that fits both categories.
What are you guys playing on the bus?
A lot of cards. I think. Oh man, what was the card that was big in the clubhouse this year? Pooh Head. I don't really even know how to explain it. I think it looked like a more complicated Go Fish in a way. Like that's kind of what it looked like. But they would play that all the time. That game was always being played. And then poker. Poker would be played a lot.
We lied. I'm going to throw one more at you. If you were to make your big league debut today, what would your walkout song be?
Oh, I was just thinking this. I think right now I'm going with like "Follow God" by Kanye. I think that one's got a good beat to like open up to. I like that one. So yeah, I'd probably go "Follow God," Kanye.
Well, Michael, this has been awesome. We appreciate you taking some time to join us here today. Can't wait to catch up in spring training and get ready for another good season for you. Thanks so much for taking some time for us.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, I said it before that interview started, and I'll say it again. Michael Morales is the man. I can't wait to see what he does in 2025, and hopefully now all you guys are more invested too, because he was awesome. We really, really enjoyed that conversation, and hopefully we have a chance to get him back on again at some point too. Maybe after he makes his big league debut, because I think it's right on the horizon here. I think him, Brandon, Logan, they're all right on the doorstep of the big leagues, and we're excited to see how they progress, because all three of those arms are pretty exciting. Anyway, that'll just about wrap up this edition of the Marine Layer podcast. You guys know the drill. You want to listen to the full form podcast, you can do so wherever you get your audio pods. Make sure to download, make sure to rate and review, leave it 5 stars. It really does help us out if you do. If you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, and then follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts at Marine Layer Pod. That's TJ. I'm Lyle. As always, we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.